It was not the long weekend that a lot of campers and cottagers were hoping for. And of course, I'm not just talking about the cold weather. As of 5 o'clock yesterday, here's your fire update. 13 fires still burning in the province, 2 of those considered out of control. Thousands of people remain evacuated from their properties and homes this morning. Those 2 out of control wildfires currently threaten Whiteshell Provincial Park, forcing an evacuation of the entire park last week. The 32,000 hectare fire to the east of the park is mostly still in Ontario, but it has crossed the Manitoba boundary into the Whiteshell. Now, no property in the park has been damaged that we understand this morning by that fire. North of the park, there's a 100,000 hectare fire that's devastating Nopaming Provincial Park, and then that's forced roughly 1,000 people out of their homes there in the Bird River area. That is still very much a huge problem. In 2021, though, let's take you back to the Whiteshell, because Manitoba government officials raised concerns in that year, 4 years ago, about what could happen in Whiteshell Provincial Park if a massive wildfire was to occur. They found the end result could be devastating. The CBC Manitoba I-Team got a copy of a report of those findings and is here to talk about what, if anything, has been done with them. Caroline Bargood is in studio to walk us through. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what does this report say?
So the report is 70 pages long, and in it, wildfire experts detail what would happen if an out-of-control blaze were to hit the Whiteshell Provincial Park, and a 20-kilometer buffer around it. Now, back in 2021, they simulated a fire that would typically happen in this area in the spring and summer months because they wanted to study exactly how it would impact this area. They identified 3 specific areas with the highest risk: Falcon Lake, Rennie, and Pointe du Bois.
So why are those areas a higher risk?
So there's a number of things. First of all, there's thousands of homes and cottages in the area that are surrounded by one-lane roadways, as well as dense tree lines and numerous lakes, which makes it very difficult for people to get out of these areas in case of an emergency. That's what makes it very susceptible to devastation. Now, the report says, and I quote, "Any road closures from either traffic accidents or wildfire may result in large-scale entrapment situations leading to catastrophic events, including significant loss of life if evacuees become stranded along transportation corridors." Now, Mike Flanagan is a wildfire expert, and he's also a university professor. He lives in Kamloops. He says, like much of Canada, the Whiteshell has a very flammable landscape.
The recipe for a wildfire is simple. You need 3 ingredients. The first is vegetation. Fire people call it fuel. What type, how much, how dry, all important aspects of the fuel. Second, you need ignition. People and lightning. And it's about 50-50 in Canada. 50% lightning, 50% human caused. And the third is hot, dry, windy weather. And it's been record-breaking heat in southern Manitoba, with very strong winds, low relative humidities, extreme fire weather. And that's our problem, is the extremes.
And as you know, we're just at the beginning of fire season. Summer is still on the way, so we could see more wildfires in the weeks and months to come.
So what can be done about the risks as he outlined them?
So this report that we got, the 2021 report, highlights about 10 things that the province could do to mitigate some of these risks, including improving the roads in and out of the Whiteshell, educating residents about wildfire risks, creating safety zones for people to escape to if they can't get out of the Whiteshell, and sharing the results of this report with local first responders and working with them to identify gaps in the evacuation route planning, as well as conducting controlled burns to remove pests and vegetation. The report also calls for people in the area to do their part and clean up their yards. Now, that's something that Barb Bobichuk has been doing for years. Back in 2016, there was a wildfire in Caddy Lake that destroyed a number of properties. Thankfully, her home survived, she says, in part because of the province's response.
But going back to the 2016 fires, I think it was really well coordinated at that point. They had value protection, like Parks Branch and the government were involved in bringing out sprinklers that were put on everyone's cottages if they were in direct line of the fires to try and save them. This time around, there's nothing. We have nothing. So I don't know if it's the change in command for our South Whiteshell parks. The people in charge, do they know what they're doing? Not sure, because they've never been through this.
She says this time around there's been zero communication with homeowners. The province's website has not been updated regularly. Information has been very difficult to get. And she worries that's putting people and properties at risk.
Do we know if any of the recommendations that you cited out of this report 4 years ago have been implemented?
We don't know, but we don't think so. The province would only say that a number of factors have changed since the 2021 report. They say that they can explain what has changed after this fire situation. Now, many of the recommendations contained in the report, the province says, quote, are ongoing. And they say that this current fire situation will also inform any future steps. Now, we spoke to a number of people with knowledge of this report as well as emergency responders, and they've all said to us, as far as they know, none of these recommendations have been implemented. Now, that does not surprise Sean Harbottle. He lives in West Hawk Lake. He owns a home there as well as the general store.
When you live in the park, you quickly discover that not much gets going, and a lot of things that the locals know out here are told to the parks, nothing is done a lot of times. So does it make me angry? Sure it does, but we live here and we just have to keep fighting through it.
Now, he says in his experience, he believes that it is the Parks Department that is the roadblock and not whichever government's in power.
You mentioned some of these things, but just to reiterate and add to them, is there anything locals can do then to mitigate the risk?
So a lot of the homeowners in the area, like Barb Babachek, have put sprinklers on top of their homes and garages and whatnot. They've also bought generators in order to run those sprinklers because they don't know how long they'd be out if they were evacuated, and who knows how long these things would last without monitoring them. Now, their hope is that this would be enough to protect their homes. Barb and Sean both told us that they clean up the dead trees around their yard and their properties in hopes of removing some of those risks, but they also rely on the province to do its part, and neither of them feel confident that that is happening right now.
All right, Caroline, thanks for bringing this in.
Thanks.
That's Caroline Bargut, reporter with CBC Manitoba's I-Team.